The first thing I notice is the silence. Not the expensive, polite kind. This is a silence with teeth, a private dining room holding its breath like it already knows who's coming. I step in with a tray on my palm, and the air wraps around me. Truffle butter, cigar smoke, polished wood warmed by bodies, and something faintly metallic underneath, like a warning. Crystal sweats on the table. Silverware sits perfectly aligned, but nobody touches it. Men in tailored suits keep flicking their eyes to the head of the table like they're checking a weather report. Nate Salvatore sits there like the room was built around him. He's CEO clean on the surface, sharp haircut, cufflinks, quiet watch, calm hands. But there's another layer you can't buy. Certainty, control, the sense that if he decides the night ends, it ends. Not because he's loud, but because everyone else adjusts without being told. Even my body adjusts. My uniform suddenly feels tighter at the ribs. The tray feels heavier. My fingers are damp against the silver. I keep my gaze down, because I've learned the rules here. Don't linger, don't stare, don't become memorable. Being seen in rooms like this isn't a compliment. It's how people turn you into a story, and stories get you hurt. So I move like I'm not really a person, just service. A shadow in black. I set the first plate down without a clink. Still, the man nearest me twitches, like sound costs money. That's when I understand. Tonight isn't a celebration. It's an inspection. 5 words floated through the staff hallway earlier and froze everyone mid-step. Passed along like bad weather. Vincent Salvatore is coming tonight. Nate's father, the one who left Manhattan 20 years ago and never came back. The name that makes grown men straighten their backs like someone just checked their posture. Nate's face stays smooth, but the room keeps listening to him the way people listen for thunder. When he shifts in his chair, every man at the table copies the movement like it's instinct. That tells me everything about who he is in this city. And it tells me something else, too. Something about how powerful his father must be, if Nate is bracing. Why would a man who owns this city look like he's waiting for judgment? And why does that scare me, too? I slide another plate onto the table. Eyes trained on the linen, on the rim of a glass, on anything except the men who could make my life complicated just by remembering me. Because my life is already complicated enough. It's a little after 9 p.m. My daughter Lily is 7, and I can picture her in my mind, pajama sleeves too long, stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. She made me promise I'd be home by breakfast. I told her yes, because that's what moms do. We turn fear into reassurance and hope nobody hears the crack. Rent is due in 3 days. $2,100. School photos next week. A field trip form on my counter with a $40 fee I haven't paid yet. This shift was supposed to close the gap, keep the heat on, keep Lily's world small and safe. Then management decided I was the right girl for the dangerous room. He didn't even look at my face when he assigned me. He pointed at my name like it was a tool on a shelf. Quiet girls don't make trouble. Quiet girls don't complain. Quiet girls can be sent where other girls refuse to go. When I hesitated, he reminded me without saying it outright that I'm replaceable. So here I am, carrying luxury on my palm like it's fragile, trying not to breathe too loudly. Nate's gaze lifts for a second, sweeping the room the way a radar does, measuring, checking, deciding. It passes over me without stopping, and that should feel like relief. Instead, the Sovereign doesn't close the way normal restaurants close. It seals. I feel it in the first click of a deadbolt, in the host stand going empty, in the curtains drawn tight against the street. Outside, Manhattan keeps moving, but inside, the noise gets swallowed. Staff who were talking 2 minutes ago stop mid-sentence. Silver trays appear, jackets get straightened. The kitchen pass turns into a silent line. Even the air changes, less food, more polish and cold money like the building knows it's about to be judged. I repeat the rule that has kept me alive since Lily was born. Anonymity is safety. Head down, hands steady, no eye contact, no opinions, no presence. Tonight the rule feels thin. From the service hall, I catch Nate Salvatore near the entrance. He stands in clean foyer light, CEO polished and controlled, the kind of man the room adjusts around without being told. 2 men hover close enough to be part of that power, but different enough to warn me. Cal Rinaldi is smooth patience. His attention glides from reflections in glass to hands on table edges to Nate's face, like he's counting what isn't being said. Mason Gallo is solid and spare. Broad shoulders, heavy stance, eyes that sweep corners and doors like he's mapping exits. When he shifts, it's careful, like he refuses to telegraph readiness. Snake and bull. My body reads them before my mind does. Behind me, management does what management always does, treats us like parts. A server gets reassigned away from the private room. her relief obvious. Then my name gets used like a convenience. Quiet Mia. Reliable Mia. The one who won't make trouble. I'm assigned to the dangerous room because I'm easy. No one asks if I can handle it. They just hand me the weight. My phone buzzes against my thigh. A small, warm pulse in a cold place. I glance down and catch Lily's message. A crooked heart emoji and a reminder that she left her drawing on the kitchen table for me. For a breath, my chest softens. I picture her in our cramped apartment, hair still damp from her bath, toes curled under her blanket. I promised her pancakes in the morning. Rent is due. Her school wants a field trip fee I'm pretending I can cover. Every shift is a gamble I take so her life stays normal. Then the room shifts again, sharp as a knife. The entrance doors open. The temperature drops like someone carried winter in on their coat. The city sound disappears. Nate's shoulders tighten just a fraction, but the men around him reset their stance like they felt the same signal. Vincent Salvatore steps inside. He hasn't been here in 20 years, I heard, and he didn't cross an ocean for a hug. He came to measure his son in person. He's smaller than Nate and older than I expected, but he takes up more space without trying. His suit looks like it belongs to another decade, darker, heavier, cut with old discipline. A cane taps the marble once, not for support so much as punctuation. His eyes are dark and unhurried. He moves like he owns the minutes. The air turns ceremonial. Servers forget how to breathe. Cal's easy confidence tightens at the edges. Mason's scanning slows, as if he's measuring a new kind of danger. Nate steps forward, and the impossible happens. The King of Manhattan becomes, for one controlled heartbeat, a son. Not weak, not small. Just affected. He keeps his threat, but he carries it differently under his father's eyes, like a weapon kept sheathed out of respect. And that scares me more than anger would, because inspections aren't about love. They're about survival. A staff lead appears at my shoulder and presses a tray into my hands like she's handing me a live wire. 2 water glasses. No ice. Filled to the same line. Everything perfect. The look she gives me spells the rules without words. Don't speak. Don't linger. Don't exist. My palms sweat under the tray. My heartbeat gets loud. As I walk, I catch the low, clipped rhythm in the hallway, old-world syllables threading through the hush. My grandmother's language, the words I haven't dared to use in years because they would prove I'm not as invisible as I pretend. The private room door waits ahead. Tray in hand. I move toward it, repeating the rule in my mind, stay silent, while the first shapes of that dialect hover on the edge of my breath. I push the private room door with my shoulder. Tray balanced like a promise I can't afford to break. Velvet walls, crystal light, and a table set like a threat. The air tastes like cologne and dry whiskey. I keep my gaze low. I have rules for nights like this. Do not draw attention. Do not hesitate. Place the water. Label turned away. Anonymity is safety. I repeat it while my pulse tries to outshout the room. Vincent Salvatore speaks, and it isn't the clean Italian Nate uses when he wants to sound controlled. It is older. Rougher. A Sicilian dialect that lands like stone. I understand it the way you understand a song you stopped singing years ago. My body knows it before my mind catches up. My grandmother's kitchen flashes behind my eyes. Flour on her wrists, her voice teaching me which words belong to family. I remember the shame of hiding that language in school, training my tongue to sound American, promising myself I would never need those words again. But here they are, alive in this room. Vince's dialect carries contempt for soft luxury, for men who wear power like a tailored suit instead of earning it. I feel it in the bite of his syllables, in the way the last sounds snap shut. Nate shifts to answer. He is Manhattan's king, polished like a CEO, dangerous without theatrics. Yet the moment his father speaks, Nate's posture changes by inches. He becomes a son seeking approval without meaning to. He tries to smooth the old words into something safe, something that belongs in this city. He does not realize I don't need him. The realization hits like vertigo. I can understand Vince perfectly. Worse, I can respond. My hands hover over the tray. My head lifts just enough to read faces. Cal Rinaldi's smile is too easy, held in place by practice. Mason Gallo scans the room like a locked door, and I feel his attention snag on me. This is the cliff. If I stay silent, I keep my job, my rent money, Lily's school week intact, and her hand in mine. If I speak, I step into a family that can erase people like me. I take one step forward anyway. I let my voice find the greeting my grandmother drilled into me for elders, for men whose pride was part of their blood. But I say it with my chin level and my hands visible, offering respect without offering weakness. The room flinches. Mason's hand drops toward his jacket by reflex. Cal's smile breaks at one corner. Nate goes so still it's like someone cut the power to him, and the color drains from his face in a controlled, stunned way. He isn't shocked because I spoke. He is shocked because I existed. Vince turns his eyes to me. That look changes the room. His gaze shifts from bored disdain to lethal focus, like a blade being drawn. In that moment, I am no longer staff. I am a question, an asset, a ghost that walked into his son's kingdom wearing an apron. I follow with a second sentence in the dialect, steady and careful, letting him know I understood the insult he meant for this room. I speak of roots and earth and respect that doesn't come from glass and gold. I don't flatter him. I validate the old rules he believes in, and I do it in the language he trusts. Vince watches me like he's weighing how dangerous I might be, and how useful. Then he makes his choice with the ease of a man used to rearranging lives. He issues an order in that same dialect. For the rest of the night, I will serve only his table. I will carry his water, his plates, his silence. If he speaks, I will be the voice that makes it understood. The room absorbs it like a verdict. And in one clean stroke, he humiliates Nate in his own territory by choosing the invisible waitress over his son. I tighten my grip on the tray, realizing I have been pulled to the center, and there is no way to disappear again. The room empties like someone pulled the oxygen out of it. I watch Nate's jaw tighten as his father's attention slides past him. Cal's smooth face goes blank, like a mask slipping. Mason's shoulders shift, ready to become a wall. Then he stops because the order isn't loud. It's absolute. Chairs scrape softly. A final glance from Nate lands on me like a warning. Then the heavy door swings in, and the latch settles with a quiet click that sounds like the end of choices. Silence rushes in behind it. Smoke drifts, curling under the chandelier. My tray feels heavier now that I'm the only one standing. Vince doesn't raise his voice at all. He doesn't need to. He indicates the seat beside him, the power seat. The place Nate had been holding like a claim, and my stomach drops. The king displaced in his own room, and the invisible waitress invited into the throne's shadow. My legs move before my courage can change its mind. I slide into the chair carefully, like sitting wrong could be an insult. The leather is cool through my uniform. My hands fold in my lap to hide how badly they want to shake. He studies me the way a man studies a map he suspects is lying. In the dialect, he starts asking questions that aren't questions. Where I am from. Who put those words in my mouth? Why I am here, in Manhattan, serving men who don't wait their turn. I answer in the same dialect, because switching back would feel like weakness. I tell him I'm from here, born in the city, raised on noisy blocks and cheaper apartments. Then I feed him the piece of truth that can carry the lie. My grandmother came from a town outside Corleone. She never let go of the old country. In her kitchen, English was for strangers and bills and teachers. The dialect was for blood, for prayer, for warnings, said low when you didn't want children to hear fear. I can almost smell her sauce again. Garlic, basil, something scorched because she always cooked angry. I keep that memory small so my face stays still. Vince listens without blinking. His cane rests against the table. He tests me next. Not with grammar, but with an old proverb one my grandmother used when I begged to run outside before my chores were done. He delivers it like a blade, and I recognize the meaning instantly. The world rewards patience, not pleading. I respond with the correct finishing words, the ones that prove I'm not repeating sounds. I'm answering. Across the table, the smallest shift happens. Not warmth. Something sharper. Interest. Then he presses for the detail that can kill me. In the dialect, he asks for my grandmother's family name before marriage, the marker people in his world used to sort strangers into threats or kin. My throat tightens. In my mind, I see Lily asleep under her faded pink blanket, her hair stuck to her forehead from that fever 2 weeks ago. The way she trusted me when I promised I'd be home before she woke. I cannot die tonight. I cannot disappear into a story she'll never understand. So I dodge, but I make it cost me. I tell him I never knew. I say my grandmother treated that name like sorrow, like a thing that brought funerals. She refused to speak it, even when she was sick, even when I begged, and all she ever gave me was the lesson. Some names are chains, and some chains are meant to be buried. Vince's eyes sharpen. He leans in just a fraction, searching my face like he expects a ghost to blink back at him. I hold still. I let my fear stay inside my ribs where it belongs. For a long moment, he says nothing. The room hangs between a verdict and mercy. Finally, he gives me a new task, and it lands like a collar. He wants the wine with roots, the bottle that tastes like soil and time, not American polish. He's keeping me close. He's keeping my voice. I stand, slow and careful, and the chair sounds too loud as it releases me. My palms are damp when I take the tray again. The door ahead feels like a border. As I reach for the handle, I know I've survived the first hunt, but I've been claimed as a translator in a war that isn't mine, and Nate Salvatore will not accept this quietly. The door seals behind me with a soft click. The hallway is all marble and silence, but it feels like a war zone anyway. Security at angles, earpieces, hands too close to their jackets. The air carries cologne, lemon polish, and something metallic that shouldn't live in a restaurant. Vince's last instruction presses against my ribs. Bring the wine with roots. Not the showy bottle, the one that tastes like soil and old rules. I start toward the service stairs with my tray balanced, and Nate Salvatore is already there, waiting. Manhattan's king in a tailored suit, face set, eyes cold enough to turn breath into glass. I try to pass. His hand closes around my wrist. Not a strike, not a shove. A stop, a claim. Heat blooms under his fingers and my stomach drops. My body knows this kind of control. The reflex is instant. Apologize. Explain. Shrink. Then I remember the dialect on my tongue, the way it woke something in Vince's eyes. I remember Lily, 7 years old, asking me tonight if I'd be home before breakfast. I picture her lunchbox on the counter, waiting for morning. I can't afford to fold. I don't yank away. I turn my wrist slowly and press my palm against his knuckles, easing his grip open with calm, deliberate pressure. I step back half a pace and make space like it belongs to me. His hand drops because I decided it would. For a beat, Nate just stares. The shock isn't softness, it's recalculation. I can see the storm under his control. Rage that his father chose me, humiliation that it happened in his own territory, and a dangerous curiosity that feels like a hook. He expected fear. He got boundaries. I keep my face neutral and my tray level. I let him read the only truth I can risk. I answered Vince in the language he respects. The old man didn't come back after 20 years to be handled with polished words. Nate's language is clean. Vince's is bone deep. Tonight, bone beats clean. The bar blands. Nate's nostrils flare. His eyes flick to the private room door like he can still feel his father's judgment leaking through the wood. A smooth shadow slides into the corridor beside him. Cal Rinaldi. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect hunger. He looks at my uniform like it offends him, then leans in with contempt dressed as curiosity. He wants to know what I said, what Vince heard, and why I'm suddenly not disposable. Cal isn't protecting Nate. Cal is protecting his spot. My throat tightens, but my spine stays straight. I give Cal one quiet response in the old cadence, just enough to show I can see the costume he's wearing. I make it clear that borrowed loyalty always cracks under real power. His practiced smile fractures. For a second, the snake is just a man who got caught. Mason shifts at the far end of the hall, solid and ready, watching hands and exits. Nate ends it with one sharp motion. He cuts Cal off and sends him back without raising his voice. Mason eases. The corridor exhales. Then Nate steps closer. Close enough that I can feel the warmth he refuses to spend on touching me again. His gaze pins me like a file he intends to open. I don't hear a threat out loud. I feel the promise in his restraint. He will investigate me, my grandmother, every missing name I dodged. He will not let Vince claim a stranger in his house. I nod once. Not permission, not surrender. Just acknowledgement that I understand the game. And I walk away. My feet move steady toward the wine cellar. My shoulders stay square. The tray doesn't wobble. Inside, my heart is sprinting and my hands are tingling like they touched a live wire. Phase 1 worked. I didn't shrink. I didn't break. When the cellar door opens and cold air brushes my face, I know Vince is hunting a ghost, and somehow I'm the shape he thinks he recognizes. And behind me, even without looking, I can feel Nate Salvatore's attention lock on because he's done ignoring me, and he's started digging. Day 1 starts before sunrise. That's how I know my life has tilted into something unnatural. I'm used to clocking in at dusk, blending into candlelight, carrying plates like I carry my fear. Now I walk into the Sovereign at 8 in the morning, and Vince Salvatore's cane is already tapping on the private room floor. For 3 days, I don't touch the dining room. I am attached to Vince from morning to night, a shadow with a voice. Men open doors for me the way they open doors for him, and it makes my skin crawl. The first sit-down is all glass screens and binders. Nate stands at the head of it in a clean suit, presenting his Manhattan empire as if it's a company. Numbers, growth, partnerships. His executives and captains sit with pens ready, faces blank. Vince listens with his dark eyes half-lidded, then releases contempt into the air with nothing more than a look. I translate it anyway. Nate's polished language becomes old-world terms. Margins become tribute. Market share becomes territory. A contract becomes a vow you break once. The room tightens when I speak, like my words set invisible tripwires. Nate's jaw locks every time I land one of Vince's knife thoughts cleanly. By afternoon, the consequences show. A guard who used to ignore me now watches me like a variable. One of Nate's men won't meet my eyes. Another shifts his shoulder into my path, subtle and deliberate. I keep my head down and my hands steady, because survival still lives in small habits. Day 2 smells like espresso, cologne, and rain. Vince keeps me at his right, always within reach. Between meetings, he asks me about things that shouldn't matter in Manhattan. Saints, my grandmother whispered over simmering sauce. Feast days, olive groves, the dirt that stains your nails when you work land you don't own. When I answer, he eases in a way he never eases around Nate, and it isn't comfort. It's recognition. Nate notices. His obsession changes shape. The fury turns quiet and sharp. He watches my mouth when I speak, as if he can catch a secret in the way I form syllables. He tracks my steps from room to room, trying to catch a slip, a name, a mistake. Cal Rinaldi turns it into a hunt. By the second night, I hear my name in corners I'm not standing in. I glimpse his phone screen reflected in a dark window. Search bars, files, quick scrolling. Someone murmurs that my employment paperwork is being pulled, that old addresses are being traced, that school records are being requested. Cal isn't curious. He's collecting leverage. Lily keeps dragging me back to the real world in flashes. A voicemail from the sitter about a cough makes my stomach flip. A message from the school portal about a permission slip I forgot to sign. I leave a soft voice note from a storage closet, telling Lily I love her, promising I will make it right. At 2:30 a.m., I perch on the bathroom lid and watch my phone light up. Each buzz could be the sitter or the school. I picture Lily asleep, hair on her cheek, and I promise myself, stay alive, keep control. Day 3 is the worst because routine makes danger feel normal. Vince's cane taps. Meetings blur. Suit jackets change. City lights switch on outside the windows. I start to feel the eerie power of it. When I translate, decisions tilt. Men who hate losing control begin to hate me. Late that third night, after the last private meeting empties, I slip into a narrow staff corridor behind the kitchen to breathe. The air smells like bleach and onions. My legs tremble under my uniform, but I keep my shoulders level. Nate steps into the corridor and blocks the only exit. No entourage, no noise, just him and the tight space and the look in his eyes that says he finally found something. He moves close enough that I feel his warmth, and he lets a few careful words fall. Not a full name, but a buried thread from my grandmother's world. My ghost identity shivers. The trap clicks shut. The staff locker room smells like bleach and damp cloth. Fluorescent lights buzz. A fan clicks like a metronome. I slip in to steady my hands before I go back out with the wine, Vince demanded. Lily is asleep across the city, and I promised I'd be home before daylight. Nate Salvatore follows me anyway. He doesn't touch me. He fills the doorway and closes the door with a careful hand. The sound is small. The message is not. His suit is perfect. His eyes aren't. 3 days of his father's contempt have carved a crack in his control, and that crack is aimed at me. He watches me like I'm a loose wire in his house. Then he lays out what he knows. My name, my file, my address, the way my past starts halfway through the story. No childhood records that match. No school photos. No messy trail. Even my jobs look too neat, like I moved through places without leaving fingerprints. He knows I always take late shifts. He knows I pay childcare in cash. Each detail tightens the room. My throat tries to close. My stomach rolls. The old dialect rises in my body the way a lullaby rises when you're about to cry. For one sharp second, I smell my grandmother's kitchen, tomato steam, and dish soap, and I remember being told to stop talking like that in public. To be normal. To be safe. Nate turns the knife with my lie. He followed the thread about my grandmother being from near Corleone. He dug through parish lists, passenger manifests, property transfers. He found a buried name tied to his family's history. A name nobody in their circle says out loud. He doesn't speak it. He circles it with dates, and the way his gaze sharpens, and I feel the shape of my real name fill the space like smoke. For one stupid heartbeat, my instinct is to fold, to apologize, to become invisible again. Then Lily's face flashes behind my eyes, 7 years old, warm cheek pressed to her pillow, trusting me to come back. If I die tonight, she wakes up alone. That thought doesn't soften me. It locks my spine in place. So I let the ghost fall apart. Mia Carter is a coat I put on. Paperwork, distance, a life cut clean of old fingerprints. My blood is Sicilian, and my grandmother's maiden line belonged to a family that got erased when men like Vince decided who deserved to keep land and keep a name. In my house, the story was never romantic. It was whispered warnings. My grandmother crossed an ocean and buried the name so deep she refused to let it touch English. Vince's generation helped do it. Maybe Vince himself. I don't have a tidy court exhibit yet, but I have enough. A refusal punished, a household wiped out, survivors forced into silence, the winners wearing the crown like it was destiny. I didn't come to the sovereign for money or fantasy. I came because Vince returned after 20 years, and I needed to get close enough to make him look at what he built on. I used the dialect on purpose. I offered him the old respect he craved so he would pull me in, test me, claim me as his voice. I wanted a reckoning, not a love story. Nate's face shifts in fast, controlled flashes, shock, then rage, then something darker that scares me more than either. It looks like respect he doesn't want to feel. It looks like ownership he hasn't earned. I can see the old law inside him, cold and immediate. I should be eliminated. Then I see him hesitate. I tell him my plan before he can shrink it into something simple. I want proof, a confession, a recording, a signature, anything that strips the myth off Vince's name and leaves a man who can be judged. If I can't expose him to the world, I will force him to admit it to me, face to face, so the crown stops feeling holy. My revenge isn't a bullet. It's collapse. The silence after that feels like pressure on my eardrums. Then the outer door handle shifts. A shadow pauses on the frosted glass, listening. Cal arrives without stepping inside, and I understand the trap tightening from a second side. He has enough truth to use, and Nate is going to have to choose what kind of king he really is before it chooses for him. Cal doesn't knock. The door opens like he owns the hinges, and the sharp part of his smile shows before it reaches his eyes. He reads me first, then Nate, then the space between us. He brings proof before either of us can move. A thin folder and a phone screen. On the screen is a scanned church register, parish seal, dates, names. My grandmother's maiden name sits there like a bruise, and beneath it, the baby name that was never allowed to live in public. Mine, before it became Mia Carter. Heat drains from my hands. For 1 second I see Lily, half asleep, waiting for my key in the lock. I taste metal and panic. There are no exits in a space built to keep staff contained. Cal doesn't present it like curiosity. He presents it like a sentence. He pushes the old law into the air, the idea that blood feuds don't walk into a house and get offered wine. He wants it simple. Identify the threat, remove it, restore order. He frames me as a fuse, proof that something they buried was not buried deep enough. And I understand, with a clean, ugly clarity, that he wants me dead not for justice, but for stability. I disrupt the latter. I make the king look uncertain. Cal's loyalty is to the old order and to Vince, not to Nate. He worships the rules because the rules keep men like him valuable. Nate moves, and it's the only warning I get. He steps into Cal's space and takes it. One hand catches Cal by the front of his jacket and drives him back into the lockers with a dull metal thud. Cal's breath jumps. The phone wobbles in his grip. Nate leans close enough that the threat becomes private, and the air turns cold. He doesn't explode. He clamps. He makes it clear, through that single, controlled act, that this territory is his. Then he orders Cal to shut it down. Not a word to Vince. Not a hint. Not a whisper in the halls. The decision is his alone. Cal's composure cracks. His smile turns thin, almost wounded, as if Nate has violated something sacred. I watch him test the edge anyway, using morality like a blade. He pressures Nate with the old code, with the idea that defiance looks like weakness, like betrayal. Nate doesn't budge. His gaze shifts past Cal, and I feel Mason before I see him. The bull appears in the doorway like a wall, face blank, hands ready without being obvious. That is the reminder that Nate's power isn't inherited, it's enforced. Cal swallows whatever he was going to say next. His eyes cut to me with promise, not pity. He backs away 1 step at a time, smoothing his jacket like dignity can be pressed back into place. When he leaves, the door clicks, snake quiet. I know he will look for another angle, another room, another ear. The silence he leaves behind is worse. Somewhere above us, the restaurant keeps breathing, pretending this is still service. I imagine Vince waiting for his wine, cane tapping, patience like a blade. If Cal reaches him first, I die. If Nate decides I'm useful, I live long enough to be questioned. Nate turns to me, and the closeness feels dangerous and personal. He looks like a man who should end a problem and instead is studying it. I can feel the conflict in him. Duty demanding my death, curiosity demanding my truth, and pride demanding that nobody else gets to decide. He refuses to let Cal write the ending. He refuses to let Vince write it either. My throat burns. Lily flashes again, and I keep my face still because I can't afford to beg. Nate makes the decision the way he makes everything happen. By taking ownership, I stay alive but not free. He will handle me personally, keep me close, set the rules, and carry the consequence. Relief hits like a weak pulse, and right behind it comes the chill of the cage door closing. I realize I just traded one executioner for another, and now I have to survive his questions. Nate doesn't walk me back through the dining room. He guides me into a private office hidden behind a panel, a room built for men who never let anyone corner them. The door seals with a soft latch. No windows, one lamp, cedar, leather, and that faint metallic edge my body reads as danger. He stays standing. I stay standing. It feels like a test. He explains his logic the way he runs Manhattan. Clean, cold, efficient. Vince is a fortress made of old rules. Cal is a knife with a smile, loyal to the old order because it keeps him fed. If the truth about me leaks, the story has to be controlled before it becomes a fire. Nate maps out how myths survive in families like his. Someone is crowned, someone is blamed, and everyone else gets to call it peace. Then he turns that logic on me, and I understand what handle means. His plan protects his crown by making me the convenient villain if things collapse. Inside the family, in public, or in whatever quiet tribunal they use, I become the waitress who tricked the old king and dragged a blood feud into his house. Nate stays king because he restores order by removing the problem. My stomach flips. I've heard this song before, just played in smaller rooms. Men deciding my worth, my ending. The office feels like a cage with velvet walls, quiet enough that I can hear my pulse. Somewhere beyond the panel, the restaurant keeps breathing for him, not for me. I think of rent due and daycare fees, and how disappearing is not an option. Lily flashes in my mind. Her lunchbox on my counter, her spelling list on the fridge, the way she asks me to promise I'll come home, even when she pretends she doesn't care. If I die because I let a powerful man rewrite me, she wakes up alone. The refusal rises before fear can swallow it. I tell him, steady and plain, that I won't be scapegoated. I won't be erased, blamed, or rewritten into a footnote so his crown stays polished. If he wants my cooperation, he shares the risk. Equal risk or no deal. Nate pushes back the way dangerous men do when a boundary blocks their path. He frames my line as impractical, as a misunderstanding of how the old world works. He watches me like he's measuring how long my spine can hold. I don't shout. I don't beg. I counter with the part he didn't anticipate. I didn't come here for romance, and I didn't come here to take a blind swing. I came with a plan. I tell him I've been collecting proof for years. Tangible things. A small spiral notebook my mother hid in a kitchen drawer, written in half English and half the old dialect, with dates that don't match the official history. A cheap voice recorder I used when I found people who remembered, filled with hushed recollections and names spoken like sins. Scanned baptism pages and ship manifests I tracked down through a librarian friend, because paper survives when men scrub headlines. I watch Nate's expression shift as he understands what evidence means in his world. Admiration, sharp and unwanted. Frustration, because I'm not furniture and I'm not a disposable sacrifice. And danger, because a file like that can get both of us killed. His eyes harden with the reminder that he could take it from me. He could lock it away, bury it, burn it. The thought chills me more than Vince's stare, so I set my next boundary just as clean. I won't move against Vince without Nate knowing, and I won't hand my proof to someone who might trade my mother's dead for his father's approval. But I also won't let Nate trade me to save himself. In the silence that follows, an alliance takes shape the way storms do, not as romance but as pressure. Nate won't sacrifice me to protect his crown. I won't strike at Vince without telling him where the blade is going. We both acknowledge Cal is still out there, still hungry, still looking for the moment he can call himself loyal while he climbs. Nate steps closer, close enough that my skin registers heat, and he gives me the next truth like a weapon laid carefully on a table. There is only one way to beat Vince and Cal at once, and it will feel like treason. Nate moves first, like he already accepted whatever this costs. He tells me Cal has been diverted for a narrow window, an urgent call, a forced errand, a distraction bought with leverage I don't want to see. Vince expects a final late-night meeting in his hotel suite. Not as family, but as inspection. Loyalty, succession, the future. The ride is silent. City lights smear across the glass. My fingers worry the seam of my apron until it bites. I picture Lily asleep under her faded star blanket and swallow. If I die tonight, she wakes up alone, and that thought keeps my spine straight. The hotel is too quiet. Plush carpet swallows footsteps. Security stands in corners like men trained to be invisible. Nate doesn't touch me, but he guides the air around me, and I understand the rule. I'm here because Vince approved me, and that approval can turn. Outside the suite, two old-world shadows wait in dark suits. Their eyes are flat and patient. They look at my uniform like it's an insult, and they look at Nate like a son who forgot his prayers. Nate gives them the reason I'm allowed through. Not romance, not mercy. Function. He frames me as necessary, as the voice Vince chose, as the only one who can catch what the old man says when he slips into the deep dialect. The men hesitate, then move aside. The suite door opens. The suite door clicks shut behind us. It's a small sound, soft, final, like a coffin lid finding its groove. My lungs forget how to fully expand. Vince sits in an armchair that faces the room like a throne, cane across his knees. He is smaller than Nate, older, slower. He still takes up more space. Cigar smoke clings to the curtains. A lemon wedge sweats beside a glass, sharp and clean under the burn. Nate stands without fidgeting, a controlled storm in a tailored suit. I stay half a step behind him, purposeless, except as a test. The dialect I used like bait rises again, my grandmother's cadence crawling up my throat. Vince starts probing immediately. He presses at Nate's empire, dismissing modern numbers and polished titles as costumes. I translate the contempt into English that lands like a slap, and I feel Nate's jaw tighten without breaking his posture. Then Vince's gaze slides to me and the temperature drops. He doesn't ask my name like a person. He catalogs me. He tests me with an old proverb, and I recognize it before my brain finishes breathing. When I answer in the deep Sicilian shape, the guards outside go still, as if language itself tripped an alarm. Vince circles Corleone again, not as a place, but as a knife. He studies my eyes, the way my hands refuse to tremble. He is searching for a ghost and pretending it's casual. Nate chooses that moment to light the fuse. He brings up blood debt like a ledger. What was taken? What was paid? What is still owed? He pushes Vince toward the past, toward the story everyone whispers and no one records. I translate every turn carefully, making the old words sound like they belong in this room, and something doesn't match. Vince's answers carry irritation that feels aimed at the legend itself, not at guilt. When he references the night my family line was erased, he uses a detail that doesn't fit the version my mother wrote down. Under his contempt for softness, another bitterness leaks through, like he resents the credit someone else took. A different name keeps surfacing in the shape of his insults. Rinaldi. Sometimes spoken, sometimes implied in the way he spits keepers and accountants of blood. Rot under varnish. My stomach turns because Cal wears that name like a silk tie. Nate hears it too. I see the brief flash behind his eyes, the recalculation he tries to hide. The room tightens. Vince leans forward a fraction. Nate holds his ground. I feel like the hinge between them, like one wrong syllable could snap me in half. Then the hall silence breaks. Footsteps. A pause. The electronic chirp of a keycard trying the suite door again. The keycard chirps again, impatient this time, followed by a soft knock that feels too polite for what it means. The old world shadows outside shift, shoes whispering on carpet, and I can sense a hand hovering near a weapon I still haven't seen. Nate's shoulders tighten like a locked gate. Vince doesn't flinch. He doesn't even turn his head. He makes a small motion with his cane, a lazy dismissal toward the door, and the suite seems to obey him anyway. The security in the hall hesitates, as if his silence is an order. That calm scares me more than shouting ever could. Then he lets out a sound that isn't warmth. It's a bitter little laugh, the kind you hear from men who have watched courts and churches fail and kept walking. He turns that amusement on the whole idea of clean justice, on my young certainty, on the American belief that truth arrives with lights and sirens. I feel my stomach drop because the room is not moving toward rescue. It's moving toward confession. He starts with my grandfather's name, Franco Rossi, like he's tasting something he hasn't allowed himself in decades. He describes Franco not as an enemy, not as a target, but as a blood brother in the old sense, an ally sworn in dirt and salt, a man he once trusted with his back. My chest tightens around the legend I grew up on, the bedtime horror my mother used like a lock on every door. In my head, Franco was always the doomed righteous one, and Vince was always the monster. Vince drags the story sideways. He admits he sanctioned a removal, something smaller, contained, the kind of ugly punishment men like him justify as order. He makes it clear he believed a lie about Franco's betrayal, and he believed it because he wanted to. Pride loves convenient evidence. But the annihilation, women, children, names scraped from walls was not the shape of his command. That scale belonged to someone else. He names the real architect without mercy, the Rinaldi consigliere from his generation, the man who advised and smiled and carried ledgers. Cal's line. Vince says that consigliere expanded removal into erasure, took Franco's roots and territory, and used Vince's name as a cloak. He let the myth grow because it was useful. He let the blame settle on him because fear is a crown too. My body reacts before my mind agrees. Shock hits first, then nausea, then a cold wave of grief for my mother's entire life of hiding. All those nights she checked windows twice. All those times she made me swallow my own language. All the years she taught me that the Salvatore name was the sky that would fall. If the sky was wearing someone else's shadow, what does that make her fear? What does that make my revenge? Anger doesn't leave, it just pivots, sharp as a knife turning in a hand. Fury at Vince for being complicit. Fury at myself for building a plan on a legend. And a new, lethal rage toward the snake lineage, still breathing in New York, still smiling in tailored suits, still calling itself law. Nate looks like he's been struck somewhere invisible. His jaw works once, hard. His breath comes shallow. One hand hovers near his jacket like his body is trying to decide whether the threat is in the room or in his own blood. I can feel him hearing his origin story crack, and he hates that he's listening. Vince's eyes come back to me with that same ancient focus. He admits he recognized me early. My eyes, the proverb, the way the dialect sits in my mouth like prayer and threat. He kept me close because he wanted judgment, not comfort. He was waiting to see if a ghost would speak. He doesn't ask forgiveness. He frames it as tragedy and strategy stitched together. By the time he learned the truth, the lie had already become legend, and legend became foundation. He stayed silent because power required it. His guilt is real, heavy, and useless. He still let the world burn and wore the smoke like perfume. The knock returns, louder, closer, joined by a sharper voice in the hall and the scrape of a keycard being forced. The old world shadows shift into a defensive line. Nate's attention snaps to the door, and I realize the truth doesn't save anyone. It only changes who will die first, when the door gives. The knock becomes a breach. A keycard chirps. The lock gives. The suite door swings in and the latch snaps like a coffin click. Cal Rinaldi steps through first, calm as a man arriving to collect what he believes is owed. He wears the old code like a badge, the kind men flash when they want murder to look like tradition. His gun is up, aimed at Nate's chest. Nate doesn't lunge. He shifts, puts furniture between us, and draws with quiet control. His weapon settles into the space like punctuation. A king's warning. The third gun is older. Vince's cane tilts, and I see the seam where it hides metal. His shadows are in the hallway, their pistols a pressure I can feel through the open door. I'm the only one with empty hands. I'm the soft point in a hard triangle. Cal speaks with moral certainty, framing me as the Rossi ghost and Nate as traitor for hesitating. He pushes the law. Blood feud, house protection, legend maintenance. Under those rules, my death keeps Vince untouchable and keeps Cal's line clean. He isn't here to save anyone. He is here to erase a problem. My mind snaps to Lily. 7 years old, asleep. My last promise sitting unheard because I said I'd call after my shift. If I die tonight, she wakes up alone, and the thought turns my fear into something sharp and usable. Vince looks at Cal and doesn't flinch. His gaze goes colder than anger. Recognition. The confession he gave minutes ago is still hanging in the air, and now the rot has a face. He studies Cal the way an old man studies a fire he started and thought he put out. He gives no speech. He shifts his cane a fraction and lets his eyes land like judgment. Cal mistakes that stillness for permission. The first shot cracks. My ears ring instantly. The room shrinks to light, smoke, and violent motion. Cal's muzzle flash blooms. Nate's shoulder twists. Vince jerks like a puppet losing a string. The cane slips, metal scraping wood, and the old king sinks into the chair as if gravity finally collects its debt. He is breathing, but he is not ruling. His eyes find mine, and I understand he is letting me witness on purpose. Nate fires next. Fast. Clean. Cal's gun hand spasms. His weapon clatters onto the carpet. He hits the door frame, slides down, and doesn't rise again. Whether it is death or shock, he is past being a threat. For one suspended beat, nobody moves. Even the hallway men hesitate, because what happens now will decide the story. Then the suite floods. Guards push in, weapons raised. Someone demands answers. Someone says Vince's name like prayer. Nate steps into the center and becomes a wall. He uses the old tone I've been translating for days, the rhythm that turns panic into obedience. He delivers one perfect lie in the language this world respects. Cal forced entry to kill Vince and seize power. Nate stopped the traitor. Vince's body could not carry the shock of the attack. He frames me as the approved translator who helped keep the room from turning into a slaughter. The lie is airtight. It protects me. It crowns Nate. I hate how clean it sounds. My stomach twists as Vince's breath turns shallow, and I realize my revenge did not end tonight. Cal paid the debt, but the myth still stands, varnished into something Nate can rule. Survival costs. Truth costs more, and it sits heavy in my mouth. I picture Lily's school morning, backpack on the chair, and I know this lie is the only thing keeping her mother breathing today. Nate's hand closes around mine. Firm, not gentle, a claim and a warning at once. He moves me past Cal on the carpet, past the guards lowering their guns, past Vince's stillness as dawn begins to pale the window line. Manhattan's glass towers look innocent for one heartbeat, like they didn't just reshuffle an empire. Nate pulls me into the corridor under protection, and I understand the price of staying. I'm alive, I'm inside, I'm not innocent. Still human, not alone. Dawn finds us in a hallway lined with glass, the kind that makes the city look clean. Pale light slides across the hotel's marble, and steam rises from street grates far below. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck backs up. Beep, beep, beep. I feel like I'm still inside last night. My hands won't stop shaking. Not big tremors, just a fine vibration in my fingers that makes the elevator button blur. There's a metallic taste on my tongue, and my ears keep catching phantom echoes, as if the suite door is still clicking shut. My wrist aches where I was stopped earlier, a bruise blooming under my cuff, and my fingertips feel numb. Nate stands beside me like nothing in him is cracked. His breathing is even. His shoulders stay square. He looks like a man who already filed the chaos into the right drawer. The contrast is almost insulting. It is also the only reason I'm upright. I keep replaying the lie he told. Not as words, but as a shape. It was clean, loyalty-coded. Old world enough to satisfy the shadows, modern enough to fit this place's polished silence. He turned a messy room into a story that sounded like tradition, and everyone obeyed it because it gave them something to cling to. He didn't just survive the truth, he rewrote it, and the world snapped into place around him. That is the price I can feel settling into my bones. I came into that restaurant believing invisibility was safety. A quiet waitress. A single mom with rent due and a kid who needs me at 7 a.m. with her hair still tangled from sleep. I built a ghost identity because ghosts don't get punished. Tonight proved the opposite. Ghosts get claimed. We are not alone anymore. And neither of us is innocent. Not invisible anymore. Just awake. In the last hour, I became something sharper. A witness with teeth. A woman who can turn language into leverage. A mother who will lie to keep breathing and still hate herself for it. The old anger in me didn't vanish. It moved. It found a new target. And it left a stain on my hands even though I never held the gun. I glance at Nate's hands and remember how steady they were when he lifted a weapon, and how steady they were when he reached for me afterward. He doesn't grab now. He holds his palm out, open, like an offered ledge. When I take it, it's not romance. It's restraint. It's him asking with his eyes if I'm still here inside my own skin. Being held like that could become a trap if I let it. So I draw my line where I can. Inside my chest, I tell myself I will not be owned. I will not be used as a scapegoat, or paraded as proof that the new king has mercy, or crushed into a myth that keeps his court obedient. If I stay near this kind of power, it will be because I choose it, and because the rules include me. Boundaries. Lily never being used as leverage. My work paying for her life, not buying my silence. An exit that remains an exit. Because the next danger isn't outside, it's inside. It's the whispers that will start the second. Vince's body is cold. It's the men who will test me, bait me, try to see if I'm loyal or if I'm poison. It's the way power will try to sand down my edges until I fit the story it wants. The elevator opens. A black car waits below, its windows reflecting a sunrise. I watch that light and feel it like a vow and a warning. I can still leave and chase quiet, or I can stay and build a life with rules I help write. Either way, I am stepping into the next chapter changed. The coffee machine hisses in Nate's kitchen like it's trying to pretend this is a normal morning. Steam curls up against marble that still feels too cold, too expensive, too clean for what happened a few hours ago. In the sink, Nate scrubs his knuckles under running water until the skin turns red, the kind of quiet you get after a storm when the city forgets and your body doesn't. I keep my hands wrapped around a mug I don't really drink from. My fingers still shake if I let them. My mouth still tastes like metal if I breathe. I'm standing in safety, but it doesn't feel innocent. It feels borrowed. The truth is simple, and it hurts because it's simple. I am alive because of a lie. I walked out of that suite because Nate told the right story in the right old tone, and men who would have erased me nodded like it was law. I benefited from power. I saw what that power costs. I can't unknow it, and I can't scrub it off like blood in a sink. Nate doesn't try to fix it with words. He does one small thing instead. When I flinch at the soft click of the lock, he shifts his body without thinking and puts himself between me and the door, not blocking me in, shielding, out of habit, like a reflex he doesn't even notice. Then he leaves his phone on the counter, screen up, passcode open, and walks away to the other room to give me space to breathe. That's the first time since the Sovereign that I feel him as a person, not just a crown. It makes what I have to do feel clearer, not softer. If I stay, it will be on conditions I can live with. No owning. No decisions made for my protection without my consent. No lies told in my name unless I agree to carry them. No weaponizing my history to scare people into obedience. No turning me into a trophy queen that proves the new king has a conscience. Lily stays off limits always. And if I ever say I need out, the door opens. No punishment, no chasing. I was a ghost at the start. A quiet waitress with her head down, praying anonymity could keep her daughter fed and her heart unbroken. I thought survival meant shrinking. Now I know survival can also mean standing in the middle of monsters and refusing to become one of them. The fear is still here. It just doesn't get to drive. Dawn light slides across the countertop and catches on a key Nate set beside my mug. Not handed like a chain, placed like a choice. I close my fingers around it and feel the weight of what I'm accepting. Not purity, not safety. Just a line I'm choosing to walk with my eyes open. Not innocent, still human. And choice is the only clean thing we have. If you've ever had to make a choice that didn't come with clean hands, what did you do with the part of yourself that was still trying to stay good? Tell me in the comments. And if my confession held you, please like and subscribe so you don't have to be alone with yours.